We wanted to hold this meeting today as a resource for those of you who are principals and assistant principals, to just give you some information about how you can support the teachers in your building who are using the kindergarten entry assessment, the formative assessment process, and just provide you some resources and some places where you might get some of your questions answered. So what we thought might be most helpful in this particular context is for us to just pose some of the questions that we've been hearing a lot from administrators and provide you answers to those questions and show you some places where you can find resources related to the questions that we have. And then if you have a question that we don't address during the webinar, we'll give you an opportunity to type into the chat box, and we can answer those questions as we see them coming in. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first question that we've heard a lot, which is, what is the purpose of the kindergarten entry assessment and the K-3 formative assessment process, and why did the state create this?
So that's a question that teachers ask a lot, and as their instructional leader, we just want to show you where you can find the answer to that and some information you can push out to your teachers. So this is our regional support wiki. I put the link to it in the chat box so you can get there easily and bookmark it on your computer. Over here, the way this wiki works is over here it says all pages, and all the pages we're going to visit are right over here, the links to them. So we're going to go way down here to the bottom to where it says Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge, RTT ELC, Project Overview. And so I'm going to click on that page. And here we have a vision video from our director, John Pruitt. It's short, it's about 10 minutes, and it gives you the reason, the thinking behind the formative assessment process, the legislation, the grant, and it shows teachers in classrooms going about the work, and it will provide your teachers with a nice view of why we're doing this, why it's important for kids, and the thinking that went in behind it. So that would be a nice way to answer that question.
Another question that we hear a lot is, what is the expectation of teachers in the fall of 2016?
And sometimes people are even asking, so how much evidence is required when we get that? So I'm going to try to deal with both of those things at the same time, but let's go to over here again to all of our pages, and we'll go to about the fourth link down where it says DIT resources, and we're going to click there. So DIT just means District Implementation Team. And you have a district implementation team in your district. There's a district leader for each district that Nikki and I are communicating with, and we send all of our information to the lead person in your district. And that person, along with your team, has been attending the regional training sessions. So these are all of the resources that for the spring training session, there was one that was held on
February 19th. We came to Caldwell County and held a meeting for the district implementation teams in the Northwest.
And there'll be another one in the Piedmont Triad region on April 7th for district teams. And I just wanted to point you to the PowerPoint for that session so you can take a look at it. It's just the second link down here. And so lots of administrators, I'm just going to go to a specific slide that can help you answer this question. Lots of administrators have been asking, so what is required of teachers in the fall? So we started with this scale up this year that included having teachers implement the process of formative assessment with observing certain things that they were familiar with: object counting, book orientation, and print awareness. Since the kindergarten entry process is a whole child process that focuses on all these domains of learning, our next step is to utilize all these domains of learning so that we are staying true to this whole child process. And that includes all of the kindergarten constructs. So we started out small: object counting, book orientation, and print awareness, so that teachers could become familiar with the formative assessment process and the technology platform. And we're moving forward as our next step in implementation, all domains, all constructs in the fall.
The other question that Cindy just mentioned was about how much evidence is required. So that's another thing that we've heard a lot from teachers is as they're using the technology platform in particular, they're wondering how much evidence is required of me in terms of entering things into the system.
And the response to that is, first of all, how will teachers know where students are or what students know? Then we want them to use their professional wisdom. We also want them to allow their students to have every opportunity to show what they know. So we want them to consider using multiple settings. So during their lessons, something that is teacher initiated, and also during child initiated opportunities. So we want them to think about, here's a time where a child can show me what they know about books during a lesson that I've planned, but also while the child is choosing books and looking at them on their own or with their peers during the classroom, so that there are multiple opportunities for the children to really show us what they know. And then we can use that information to guide our instruction.
So we'll move on to another question that a lot of people are asking, particularly administrators, which is, who has access to the technology platform? The teachers do, but principals are wondering if they have access to the platform, and how do you actually log on and get that access? So Cindy's going to show you the technology platform itself and how you can, as an administrator, how you can log on and access the platform.
So what I did earlier was I went right here I'm going to take you to the KEA resources page. So that link is right here, KEA resources. And then I want you to scroll down to where you see the technology. Here we go. We have an entire section here on technology. Right here it says to log on to the platform. So you want to click here, and that will take you to the technology platform. And here you enter your UID. And so here you see my name. I don't have a UID because I'm not attached to a school system. So you will enter your UID here and then do the forgot password if you're a brand new user. So all kindergarten teachers in the state and all elementary principals have an account with Teaching Strategies to gain access to the platform. If you are an assistant principal, you can also gain access to the platform, but you will need to be added by your district standard administrator. And also your principal can add you if they know how to add a new user. If you're unsure of who your district level standard administrator is, you can contact either Nikki or I, and we can get that information to you.
So from an administrator's lens, we know that you're probably wondering how the kindergarten entry assessment and the data collected will affect your school performance data. And we wanted to just take a minute to address that and show you where you can find more information about how this data is used.
So a good place to go for that, again, would be going to this project overview page. We have a nice resource there that I think will be helpful to you. So let's go there first. I think the second resource, the project overview, would be really helpful for you because it's just a one-page document, but it contains a lot of information. You've got the legislative component here. You've got information about our grant here. And I think these two bullets right here, these 2 bullet points, I think will be really helpful for you. First, that the purpose of this is used to guide daily instruction. And then that last bullet that talks about this isn't to be used for accountability and high stakes purposes. So that helps to answer this question about it affecting your performance data.
And we really want to make sure to emphasize that this data is teacher data. It's really for your teachers to use to inform their instruction. And you'll see as you observe that as teachers are engaging in the formative assessment process, in all the steps of the formative assessment process, that the data that they collect is really useful to them in making instructional decisions and making instructional decisions that'll really support their kids to move them forward. And that's an important thing, I think, to communicate, is that really, first and foremost, it's data for the teachers.
The other portion of this document that I think you would find helpful is that it really outlines the responsibilities of stakeholders. So here's our job at the state level. Here's the job at the district level. Here's the school responsibilities, identifying a person to lead this work at your school, providing time for teachers to participate in the PD. So here, here's the job at the school, and then here's what's expected of your teachers. So this one-page document just provides a nice overview.
And the next question that we wanted to address is sort of related to what Cindy was just showing you about what the role is of the school in supporting this work. But as principals and assistant principals, you're probably also wondering what your role is in supporting your teachers as they do this work. And so we have some resources that'll be helpful to you as you think about what you can do to support your teachers.
Probably the best resource for that, or some of the best resources, will be again on this DIT resources page. One of the things that I know principals and assistant principals think a lot about is the data in your school. You want to take a look at the data and analyze it and know how to support teachers in knowing what to do with their data and how to move their students forward and take advantage of and best support the students in the classroom. One thing I would recommend is to look at this evidence status report video. It's really short. You can see 3 minutes, 20 seconds. And then there's this analyzing the KEA evidence document that goes along with it to help you think about the report that you can download from watching the video, and then also what support you can offer teachers. So I'm going to just download this real quick and show you what that looks like. So it comes up as a Word document. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger so we can see it better. So there are just some things to think about when you're looking at that evidence report. So we said before that how much evidence teachers gather, that depends on their professional wisdom. They may see a child do something a couple of times and know that this is where they are along the construct progression and know what to do as next steps. They may also need to see something a few times because they're unsure about where to mark the child along the construct progression and need to sort of dig deeper. So that really is about the teacher's professional wisdom and specifically about the different construct progressions and what teachers, how teachers are gathering their evidence. So, and it might also be about their comfort and ease and understanding or their note-taking systems. And so thinking about how might you support teachers and how they're eliciting evidence, we have a module about eliciting evidence on our module page in the wiki. So you can go right to that. And it might take just a minute to open from this Word document. But on our regional wiki, we have modules that support how to elicit evidence of learning. So if teachers feel like, I'm just not sure how to gather evidence, here's ways that teachers have done it, along with how to do it in the technology platform.
And these modules, while Cindy's on the modules page, and we'll have an opportunity to come back to this page later, but there are modules here that address each of the 5 critical components of the process. And we've been hearing from district leaders that teams are using these modules in a lot of different ways to support their professional development. So it's really worth looking through. And I know, Cindy, that we'll come back to it in a few minutes, but some valuable resources there.
Let me see if I can get back to where I was. Oh, that's not it. Okay, wait just a second. Oh, there I am. So the next thing that we hear a lot from people who are looking at this report is they're noticing as teachers are making status summary decisions, and how are they using that evidence for that? We sent out a survey actually to district leaders and said, what kind of evidences are your teachers gathering? When you look at this evidence report, what kind of evidence are your teachers gathering? And most of the people are saying that our teachers are taking anecdotal notes. And people said that they need support with knowing how to manage it in their classroom. So again, on our wiki, we have a space where teachers are sharing ideas about how to manage note-taking and analyzing evidence in their classroom and how to gather data. So we have a page on our wiki called the KEA Gallery where teachers have shared their ideas. And this is really important because what teachers have realized is that they are learning a lot from sharing ideas with each other. Trying to manage it on their own in the classroom, after they try it for a while, they're discovering that they can figure out how to do it. But when they get together and talk and share ideas, they're finding that it really becomes just naturally part of what they do. And sharing ideas has been really helpful for them. So we continue to ask teachers to share the great ways that they're doing this work. And you'll see they are very different. Some teachers can do things like put a poster board up and stick sticky notes on it, while other teachers are making flip books and doing a grid. And then you might see some things that are pretty sophisticated. Teachers all think differently. So you might also, this one is K3. So let me show you a KEA one. Some teachers do things that are, I like to think in tables and grids. So sometimes teachers will come up with something that looks like this, where they type in their student's name and then enter the date that they've observed students along the construct progression. So they will find what matches their observations in their classroom. And then finally, what we get a lot of questions about is the status summary and how to support teachers in doing that. And so there's a link here to how to make a status summary, and that is also on our wiki. So all of this comes out of running reports on the platform. And then there are supports for what to do to support teachers that we have on our wiki page. Let me go back here. So I would start there. Here's how I support teachers. This helps me to know how to run the reports. And then here's the analyzing the KEA evidence document. What questions should I ask and where do I go to help and support teachers?
And so since Cindy was just showing the gallery page, I want to go back to that because we've had a lot of people asking us for examples of how teachers are not only collecting the data, but also using the data. And on that KEA gallery page, as Cindy was just showing you, there are lots of examples of teacher-created resources that they're using for managing this in their classroom, and also some things about ways that they're using the data for things like family engagement or just for planning their instruction. So that's a valuable resource for supporting teachers as well. A lot of people ask, is this process for all students? We've heard that question a lot. People are wondering which teachers need to be trained, who needs to be a part of it. And we have some information about that too.
So this might be a good place. Nikki mentioned earlier about the modules. A lot of administrators are using these modules when they have new hires in the building to train support staff. So thinking about any staff member who supports the development of kindergarten students, they are bringing them to these modules. And for teachers who have had training, they're bringing them to these modules as well. Because teachers need to hear it, any adult learner, any learner in general needs to hear the information again and again and in multiple ways in order to be able to implement. But they're also bringing new hires, additional staff members, EC teachers who might not have been part of the initial training to this site because these modules are, I think the longest one is like 17 minutes. And so they can do them during their PLC time, do them in pairs, in partners, and then talk about the content. And they include, here's all the materials are included here, as well as, examples and examples within the technology platform. But Nikki asked me to do something different here. and that was to talk about the requirements for EC teachers. And to do that, I wanted to log on. I'm in the training platform here, but I wanted to show you, I wanted to show you a construct progression just so you get an idea of what this looks like. And this is just a pretend class that we have in here. Let me go to this. I'm just going, oh, it doesn't like that. Hold on one second. I'm going to go to view evidence. I got to clicking too fast. Let's see there. Okay, I'm trying to get to the construct progression so you can see. There we go. So what I wanted you to see here was that each construct progression begins with emerging. And they are written and designed, and we actually designed them with EC consultants and teachers from across the state. And they're designed from developmental age 3 to developmental age 10 to be inclusive of all kindergarten teachers or all kindergarten students. So you can see the first step on this progression would be for approaches to learning, would be for a child who wanders around the room, examining many options for self-directed tasks in the classroom environment but does not settle with one particular choice. So if a child is before this step on the progression, the teacher would mark emerging. And the same thing happens if the child has gotten beyond this progression, so beyond developmental age 10, where they're sustaining engagement in self-directed activities while increasingly resisting distractions, resumes or re-engages in activities following interruptions. So then they would mark beyond. So that, in effect, that is for to cover the scope of development at kindergarten entry. So it is intended for all kindergarten students. I hope you found that helpful. I'm noticing that we had a couple of questions here. It seems like one person's having difficulty with audio, but I haven't heard that from anyone else. So I'm going to continue assuming that we have, I'm going to continue assuming that you all can hear me. That's okay. We'll continue.
Okay. When Cindy was talking about this modules page and about how district teams and administrators have been using this to train people who might not have been involved in the initial trainings, I just was thinking too about the value of exposing and providing training to other teachers in your buildings besides just your kindergarten teachers or the teachers who are engaged in the process. I know that that other people who support the kindergarten classrooms are observing some of the things that that the kindergarten teachers are looking for. Because this process does focus on the whole child, there are lots of opportunities for the PE teacher, for example, to observe some of the things that your kindergarten teachers are going to be looking for. So, and not only observe those things, but provide instruction and support for the next step. So when you're looking at that health and physical development domain, and the construct progressions for that domain, the physical education teacher is going to be someone in your building who has the expertise to know what kinds of lessons and activities could support kids to grow and move along that progression. I think it's really valuable to provide that support, not just to the teachers who are the primary teachers for those kids, but to any of the teachers in the building who are going to have expertise and be engaging with those children and have opportunities to help them grow too. So they can be providing lessons right alongside the kindergarten teacher in helping them develop in all 5 domains. And that's really valuable.
And districts have done this in a couple of different ways. In Winston-Salem, they used the expertise of their PE
district coordinator.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nikki. And that person was able to share their expertise with kindergarten teachers at the district level to say, this is why this is important. Here's how you can help students grow in fine motor and gross motor development, and why it matters for their academic achievement. And we've also seen that something similar happen in Chatham County where their guidance counselors staff came in and worked with teachers to talk about social emotional development. Here's why this is important. Let's talk about what this looks like in your classroom and why it matters for academic achievement. And then to support teachers as they're thinking about how to observe this and how to best meet the needs of the students in their classroom. And I brought you back to the KEA gallery because Mallory Moore in Stokes County what she would do is she would send a clipboard with her students' names and also what she happened to be observing as her students went around to their specials teachers and said, oh gosh, this week I'm observing for these things. And while they're with you, would you also take a look and see what you notice? And that mattered. It mattered. So it wasn't in place of what she was observing. It was in addition to. So that, again, we go back to that teacher's professional wisdom and giving her students multiple opportunities to show what they know across settings. Mm-hmm. And that mattered. It matters that students have lots of opportunities to do their best and show us what they know. So that was one way that Mallory went about that. And it was simple for her to just make this little green sheet to share, here's what we're looking for, and she would send around this clipboard with her class. And that, again, that's on the KEA gallery.
So those are the questions that Cindy and I have been hearing a lot and wanted to share information with you about. But we know that you might have some questions too. So if you would take a minute now, if you have some additional questions that you'd like for us to address on the webinar, if you'll type them into the chat box, then we can read them out loud and answer your questions out loud. And also know that the development of this regional wiki that we've been sharing with you today is a direct result of the questions and the input that we're getting as we're talking to people across the region. So the resources that we have are created because people have asked for them. And so as you share your questions, that just gives us an opportunity to provide you with additional resources that you might find useful. So we really welcome those questions and hope that even if you don't have any right now, that you'll use our contact information, which is on the homepage of the wiki, and send your questions to us so that we can get those answered for you and potentially provide resources for everyone else who has the same question.
Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to just bring you to this place on our wiki page. We do have a place there for questions. So you might find the question that you want to ask right on this page, because when we get questions that seem to be frequently asked questions, we will put them here on this page. So it might be here already. One of the questions that we got when we were talking about EC is this for all students? And again, that answer is yes. That means all kindergarten students. Any student that has a kindergarten code in Power School. And so that means self-contained. That means all students, all kindergarten students. And the reason for that is that it is developmental age 3 to age 10. And we showed you where teachers can mark on the progression that they are emerging. Here's what we want to know. This is really important. If the teacher is finding that they're just marking emerging, well, that's not a useful tool for them. Mm-hmm. So if that happens, we need feedback about that, because we haven't developed something that's useful for teachers to guide their instruction. And so let us know. And we need to provide additional information. We need to develop progressions and support their formative assessment process in ways that will help them to best meet the needs of their students.
So we're just going to look now and see if we have any questions in the chat boxes.
Another question that we got was about the use of the data, and that was something that we did talk about already. I'm going to take you back to this project overview link. We get this question a lot about about the data being used for teacher evaluation, what's happening with this data. And so here is the legislative information and the grant information. And what we want to ensure, folks, because I think this is where the questions are arising from, is here, this was written into our grant, safeguards were written into the grant, that this data will not be used for accountability and high stakes purposes. So like evaluating teachers or early learning and development programs. So this one-page document, which is, we call it our one-pager, has a lot of information in here about the legislation, our grant, and the responsibilities of the stakeholders. And let me show you again where I found that. If you're on the wiki, you go to this page, which is RTT ELC Project Overview, and it is this second link. And you may also want to watch this video. This is our director, John Pruitt, who's talking about the purposes of the grant and the work in K-3 formative assessment. We are just a little bit over time, but I want to make sure that we have answered all of your questions. Okay, so a couple of clarifying questions here. One is, are EC resource teachers going to have access, or will they report to the regular teacher? Any teacher that is listed as a kindergarten teacher in Power School already has access. So if they're coded as teaching kindergarten students, they have access already. If they don't have that designation as a kindergarten teacher or as having kindergarten students, if they have a child who, and I'm not a Power School expert, so if I'm saying the wrong terminology, I apologize for that. But if they have a child in their classroom who's coded as kindergarten and they are coded as being a teacher of kindergarten students, they already have access. That's how they're being pulled into the platform from Power School. If for some reason they do not have access, then the way to provide them access is to have them added by your standard district administrator, and they should know how to add users. So if there are additional questions about that, I would go through your standard district administrator. We've provided webinars on how to add users for them. And then if there's any glitch at all with that, just email Nikki or I, and we can support you with that.
And if you're not sure who your district administrator is, we can help you with that also. Yeah, we can help you with that
as well. We've been providing information about making sure that your EC staff is on board and has the training they need for a while. The other question is, what is DPI doing with the collected data? So know that this data that is being collected is going to be aggregate data. So it won't tag teachers or individual students or individual schools or districts. So the data will be aggregate. And the intent of the data is to get a snapshot of the state at a point in time of where kindergarten teachers are, or where kindergartners are at entry. And what this data will help us do is to know how we can respond as a system. So it's looking at what we would call systems intervention. So let's look at the state as a system and say what we know about kindergartners at the beginning of 2018 is that we could use some additional support with approaches to learning. So that allows us to know we can build some PD and present it on the wiki and provide some regional sessions. And so it allows us to know where we can provide additional support, not only at the state level, but also to provide additional support out in the regions and to build capacity and understanding. Mm-hmm. That's the intent of it. And having a kindergarten entry assessment in every state was a federal move. And so the way we've gone about developing it was with input from kindergarten teachers across the state. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? We are glad to stay on a few extra minutes to make sure that we've met your needs today. Okay, so Scarlett asked, what domains constructs will grades 1 through 3 implement next year? That's a great question. We get that one a lot. So the way that this works is that districts partner with us in order to implement K3. So it won't go grade by grade, and it won't be statewide. Grades 1 through 3 are now implementing gross motor. What happens instead, and I can take you to that slide so that you have a nice visual while we're talking. I'm going to take you to the slide deck, and it will be at DIT Resources.
I already have it open.
Did I have it open somewhere? There it is. So here's the next slide. So this school year, we have 2 partnership districts, Chatham County and Winston. And these 2, Winston-Salem, Forsyth. So these 2 districts, only at these schools in these districts, they are partnering with us for a usability study for the K3 constructs. And what we're doing is gathering information to discover how this works, what works best, what barriers get in the way at these 2 districts. Once that information is gathered, then we'll know what next steps are for scaling up K3. And what will happen from that point is additional districts will partner with us to continue scale up. And it will be district by district. And we will continue to scale up with cohorts of districts. But what you won't see is everybody in the state now is doing grades 1 through 3 for these 2 constructs like we did for kindergarten entry. It will look more like partnership and purposeful planning and deep support. I hope that was helpful. We get that question a lot. We're using implementation science in a scaling up process.
It looks like we've answered all the questions that we've gotten in the chat box. If you do find, after you review some of the information that we've shared today, that you have more questions, just remember that there's contact information for me and for Cindy, for Nikki and for Cindy, on the homepage of our wiki. And we're always available to answer questions by email or by phone as you have them. So feel free to use that, to use our contact information as well.
Now I'll take you back to the home page of the wiki. Right when you land on the home page, you'll see that's how you can get a hold of Nikki and I.
So please do, as you have more questions, get in touch with us or with your members of your district team, and we're glad to support you in any way we can. Since it looks like we've answered all the questions in the chat box, we'll let you go. We really appreciate you taking some time this afternoon, and we hope that that we have answered some of the questions that you've had and provided you some resources to use to support your teachers. So thank you so much for your time, and have a great afternoon.
And happy St. Patrick's Day.